Well, are you finally ready to get this transmission service done so we can get this car back on the road? I know I am. Well, welcome back to GB9 Garage. Let's get this done today. Okay, so first things first, I've cracked open the drain plug, and I actually went ahead and cracked the fill plug as well, just to make sure I could get that open. It would be pretty disastrous if I couldn't, but it did finally break loose. Very tight. The thing's been on there since 2005, I'm sure. So yeah, it's been a while. So anyway, I cracked it loose. It's open. It's ready to go. So let's drain this and see how much of a mess we can not create, I hope. Now, when Steve did this on Aston 1936, he was very, very meticulous about gathering up all the drained fluid so he could measure how much fluid came out, just to check things out. So that's a great idea, except I had the hoses disconnected for months and fluid draining out of the whole system. So you know, I don't expect that measuring this is going to do me a lot of good, because you know, I don't know how much fluid already came out. I know that it was all over my garage floor at one point, because I took away my catch basin from underneath the transmission while I went away out of town, and when I came back, the whole garage floor was covered in transmission fluid. So you know, I think I've already lost a good portion of the fluid as it is. So measuring it's not going to do me any good. So we're just going to get it drained out and try not to make too much of a mess here, and then do the service on this thing. I'm super excited. If I can get this done today and get it refilled, which I don't see why I can't, then I could actually pull this car out of the garage on its own power today. And that's an exciting prospect. So since the transmission cooler lines were already disconnected from the valve, or this valve here, the temperature valve, for all those months, and basically at a down angle draining, I was going to try to avoid disconnecting this section altogether, because I really don't need to. I've already drained the system here. So that was my plan. But conveniently, Aston Martin has put 2 or 3 of the pan screws right underneath, or you know, right above it. So right underneath it there. So I have to get this out of the way in order to get to those last couple of screws. So I guess we're going to be pulling it off again anyway. Typical, right? All right, so much for my theory that the coolant system was all drained. It's starting to slow down now, but there was a pretty good amount of fluid coming out of there. So I guess this was necessary no matter how you slice it. Anyway, I'm not doing a super in-depth how-to video on this. I will be showing you everything that I'm doing for sure. But if you want a really step-by-step video on how this is done, go check out Aston 1936. He did a phenomenal video, and that's exactly the instructions I'm following there. So go check that out. But otherwise, I'm going to try to get this done so we can get this car back on the road. All right, so I got the basically thermostat for the transmission cooler completely out now. So now I have full access to all the screws. I can get this pan off. This thing's pretty interesting. It actually opens and closes just like the thermostat on your radiator system does. Once the transmission fluid gets to a certain temperature, this opens up and allows the transmission fluid to then flow through the whole coolant system. And so while it's cold, it just kind of recirculates here in the system. So again, really in-depth video on this with Steve over at Aston 1936. So check it out. Otherwise, let's get this pan down. We'll let this drain out just a little bit more, because getting ready to make a big mess here when this pan comes down. There's a lot of fluid still up down in this sump here area. So the drain plug is not the lowest point on the pan. So you know, I'm sure there's a reason for that. Now the directions on this transmission service has a very specific order in which you're supposed to remove these screws in order not to warp the pan when you're pulling it out of there. I don't understand why you would be reusing this pan if you're taking it off. It's a plastic pan with the filter. So if you're taking this off, this is what you're replacing. So that doesn't make a lot of sense. So I'm not going to bother with the taking this out in a particular order situation. Now, when it comes to the shift valve inside, we'll follow the directions certainly. We're not replacing that. So yeah, we're just gonna get these out right now, and then we'll start following the specific order directions. Okay, so now I just have these 2 corner screws left in the pan. So I'm going to get everything off of this tray that I don't want to be covered in transmission fluid because, I think it's going to make kind of a mess here. So get this kind of cleared out of the way so we can drop that pan. Okay, here we go. Let's see how much of a mess we can not make. All right. I think there's the tube that goes up that has a bit of a grommet on it. So I think it has a little bit of resistance. So I'm kind of thinking this isn't going to just fall down. But we'll see. There we go. Oh no, it's coming down pretty easy. Now let's just see if we can get this out of here without. I don't think so. All right, let's just try to get some of the fluid out of this corner. This is the point of the big tray, right? Give us lots of area to catch fluid. So many little things and bits to catch on to things. There we go. All right. All right. The pan is down, and there, I'll get you a better view for sure, but there is the inside of the transmission. Pretty exciting. So when removing the Mechatronics unit from this transmission, this is where it gets very particular. They give you exact instructions on the order in which to remove these screws. And so you got to follow it directly. Now, in this situation, we are going to be reusing the Mechatronics, obviously. So we're going to be very careful to do this in the proper order. So we will get these removed now. Okay, so as I'm removing these, I got through the first 4, and I realized that there's a couple that are different lengths, clearly, than the others. And so the first 3 are all the same, but then I got to number 7 here. So I have the 10 bolt pattern and not the 13. So I'm going backwards from 10, and I'm down to 7. It's longer. So I'm not sure that there's going to be a whole lot of controversy here. The reality is, though, I'm going to make sure I put them back in the same spot. So back to our egg carton. I got another egg carton, and I numbered them 1 through 10. And I'm just going to put the screws in the slot of the order that they came out. That way, I don't have to figure out if number 7 was the long one or the short one. So it again should be pretty obvious, but this will make things a little bit easier. So we'll go 10, 9, 8, and then long one is number 7. Yeah, we'll go from there. Okay, we're down to the last 2. And now that I've done all of these, I realize that the first 3 that are basically on the outside of the Mechatronics are the short ones. It appears that every one of the ones in here are long. So I think my egg carton thing was not required, not necessary, but better safe than sorry. And I'll still be putting them back where they went. So let's get these last 2 out. Got to be real careful now because now is when the thing's going to come down. Now I have the neutral lockout in neutral, so that's stuck in neutral. And I have the wiring harness plug out, and you can see this is pulled down. So that whole thing is disconnected. So at this point, I'll take these last 2 screws out, and I believe then the whole Mechatronics unit should be able to come down. Are you kidding me? Oh, yeah. Transmission fluid is slippery. All right, that's number 2. And now the last one. There should be some fluid on top of this thing, so it might be a little heavy. It does feel a little heavy. I'm not sure if it's just fluid or if the unit's actually probably a bit heavy itself. All right, there we go. And down it comes. All right. And then we'll just dump all this fluid out of here. Okay. There it is. Removed. And now we can get to all those rubber grommets that we're going to pull out and replace. Okay, so here is everything that's come out of the transmission. There's the Mechatronics unit here, which we're obviously not replacing, but here it is. We've got our 4 little bushings that go up into the transmission, actually, where the fluid goes through. And it's crazy how you can feel these. They're not brittle by any stretch, but yeah, the elasticity of these is gone. There's no doubt about it. Took me a second to get these out of the transmission just because they weren't very pliable. So I'm pretty excited to get these replaced. And then there's the last little piece here, which also is very much gone when it comes to any kind of rubber elasticity. Here's the pan. It has the filter built into it. So there's the filter area. And then here are the magnets. So if I run my finger over these magnets, there's just a bit of, there's fine dust in there, which is all good. That's what these magnets are supposed to do, is to grab all that fine dust. But there's no chunks of anything here. There's no big pieces of anything. It's all just fine dust. So that's good. Okay, so I'm going to replace all these rubber gaskets. Oh, and then here's the electronics plug sleeve. And again, also on this, it has looks like 3 different rubber O-rings, and yeah, they're all pretty flat. In fact, when I took this out, it came out real easy. So there was no, there's no pliability on those O-rings either. There was there's a decent amount of gunk gathered up on the bottom of this pan, so there might have been some leaking. I don't think it was leaking a lot, but there certainly might have been some seepage out of this piece here, some seepage around the edges here, but nothing extravagant. Again, the whole purpose of this was just 100,000 miles on the car, so it needed to get done. And then we drained so much fluid out when we had the thing apart that it made no sense not to do it now anyway. So, all right, let's get this put back together. Okay, so now we're gonna reinstall all these rubber gaskets, tube liners, whatever you want to call it. Got a little bit of transmission fluid that's dripped down. That's clean. I shouldn't say clean, but it certainly isn't the bad stuff that's got the grit all over it. So they go back in, of course, the same order. So if you get in here, you can see the 2 shorts first, and the medium, then the longest one. So the longest one goes up in there, and already I can see a huge difference from the last one. So the ones I took out were perfectly level with the bottom of that transmission metal there, and these ones are sticking down a bit. So they've got obviously a lot more to do with providing that seal. So it is important to note here, though, that the transmission never felt like it was shifting poorly, that it needed this service necessarily. It always felt like it shifted great. I'll be curious to see if it feels like it shifts better. I'm getting harder shifts now. Yeah, it'll be fun to see. So, all right, and then this piece up here, get a little transmission fluid on here, and then we'll get this one installed too. All right. All right. That piece kind of sits up in there. Yeah, a little bit trickier to get to the seat right now. Let me make sure I got this the right way. This one only goes in one way. One's big and one's small, and it can only go in the one way. So we come around the other side and see if I can get that right. Well, as with anything, always a catch, right? So I followed the directions from Steve. I ordered the parts that Steve had listed, and what's interesting is that the Valvetronic module, Valvetronic shift module piece that came out of the car, that's this one here, is not exactly the same as this one here. And it's going to be tough for me to show you from this angle. So I'm probably going to bring the camera over here and show you straight down on here. But I think I found a solution. Let me show you what I'm doing. So I think this is going to be a better view for you. So here is the old part. Here is the new part. You can see that it has a little tag on a little tab here on the outside on the new part, but that's not that big of a deal. I think that's kind of not really going to come into play. But what does come into play is if you can see in here, there's a little tab right there in between these two pieces there. And on the part that came out, there's no tab there at all. The other thing to note is that there's a little bit of a like a key here, and on the new part, it's much wider than on the old part. So it seems, I took my micrometer, I measured, everywhere, and it seems that otherwise they're identical parts. So I thought, well, I could shave that little piece off and then get it to fit. But then again, there's that lip piece on the inside here that is a different dimension, and that seems super scary because there's a lot of work to put this piece that I've grinded away in there to hope it works. So I figured out though that the little rubber grommet pieces that are in here come out, and so if you put them all back in there, okay, so now I can remove these rubber pieces out of this part, which to be honest I've already done. So I've removed them out of this new part and put them in the old plastic part. Now this is a hard plastic on the outside. It's only the little rubber piece here that is actually a softer piece of rubber, and it fits in there perfectly well. It's I think these dimensions here are exactly the same. So, and now it's nice and squishy, and I've got a lot more of a lip here than I did with the old part. So they're kind of squished. There's not a lot of left there. Again, I wasn't having any trouble, so I don't think they've failed by any stretch, but they've got 101,000 miles on them, so they're pretty close. So that's my solution. We'll see how it goes. But now I'm putting the old plastic part back in the car, but with new rubber grommets in there, or new rubber gaskets in there. Give it a go. All right, so now we're going to put this plastic piece. I'm going to keep banging my head everywhere I go. All right, now we're going to put this plastic piece back in where it goes. And this time, because it's the same outer dimension plastic, it should fit right in there perfectly well, which it does. So, all right. So now we've got all 4 of these rubber pieces replaced, and we've got this replaced. So we are ready to put the Shiftronic unit back up in there. 1 and 2 started. Now I'll get those ratcheted up in there in the proper order. This thing's not it's not light, it's not crazy heavy, but it is an awkward position to be in, and therefore makes it a little bit tricky. Let's get one tightened. Got to remember, all those new rubber gaskets are going to be pushing out on a little bit more than it was before. So I'm just going to get this in here a little snug so it sits. I think it's where it needs to be. And now I'll get number 2 in. Again, it's very important to follow the exact order that the manual calls for, because all these gaskets have to be seated properly, and you want to make sure you put even pressure on all of them. So there we go. There's 1 and 2 in, and nice and stable. So now I can go ahead and put the rest of them in the proper order, and then we'll go to the next step.
Okay, well, it looks like my microphone went out while I was recording these next couple videos, so I just kind of sped them up to show you what was going on. But I want to put the pan on here, and you can see I have all the numbers, all the screw holes numbered, so I can do them in the proper order. When I was going to torque in number 2, my torque wrench didn't work right, and it got too tight, and I basically snapped that bolt off. So that was not good, but fortunately enough of it was still exposed where I could get it out. So anyway.
Well, it looks like I lost my microphone there for a couple of videos, so sorry about that. But anyway, disaster averted. I was able to grab a hold of the bottom of that stud and get it out of there. The new pan came with all new bolts for that, so I'll just recycle one of the old bolts. But I need to figure out why that happened. So if my torque wrench is not good, I just bought that torque wrench because it's such low settings, only 10. This is only 10 Newton meters, so like 7 foot-pounds. So it's pretty low. It's right at the bottom of the scale of that torque wrench. So anyway, yeah, figure this out, figure out what happened, and try to get this done without breaking any more bolts. Well, I worked out everything with the torque wrench. I think it was just set a little bit off, so it was not quite clicking. I think it was like in between or something. I don't know exactly, but I was able to just readjust it. I checked it on a different bolt completely off the car to make sure that it was gonna click on me and seem, you know, it's only 10 Newton meters, so it's not very strong. So it should have clicked pretty easy. So I was really shocked. I kind of figured something was going wrong, but anyway, they're all torqued down. The thermostat basically thing is back installed. Everything's back installed. So it's time to fill it up with transmission fluid. The first step in filling this thing up is to just get enough in there that it starts to flow out a little bit. So I got this pump here online. It's got the little hook adapter, so I can just hook it in there and pumped it up. We have a little pressure, so it should just start to flow once I let it in there. Unlike the kind where you just pump them, this one's just gonna flow on its own. So see how that works out. Hopefully it doesn't go too fast. But anyway, I got five quarts in there. Got 5 quarts in there right now. And I'm just gonna fill this up until it starts to leak out. That's the steps here. Okay, so I put 5 liters in here, and when Steve did this, it took 3 liters. So we should be getting pretty close to starting to spill out now, but so far not. And we're getting down there. It's getting close to the 2 liters left mark. So there we go. Got some light in there. Still got pressure on the tank, so just gonna let it keep going until we get to it starting to spill over, which should, like I said, take about 3 liters. Yep, there we go. We are dripping out. So there you go. That is the first step in filling this up, is getting it full enough to where it starts to drip out just like that. All right, let me get this fill cap screwed down. Not super tight. I'm not going to torque it down yet because we still have to put more fluid in. But that's the first step. I got the 3 liters in there now. So the next step is to start the car. Wait till it gets to less than 1,000 RPM. So after a minute or two, it should warm up and drop the RPM down. And then rush back down here, open the fill tube back up, and get as much of the fluid as I can back into it until it's dripping down again. Now, most of the time, you're going to have an exhaust pipe here in the way. And I know Steve over at Aston 1936 put his back to do this step. I think he did it to kind of show you how you would do it if you were under the car. I'm going to have exhaust flying through here, but I mean, it's going to be exhaust everywhere no matter what. So I don't know that it's going to be a huge deal. I don't think it's going to get that hot, but we'll keep an eye on it. If it starts to get hot, we'll shut it down, put the exhaust pipe back on, and go from there. It's also going to be loud and very smelly, but we'll live. I got the garage door open, the window open. I got the big garage door open. I don't have a fan, so we'll keep an eye on it. Start to get too thick in here, then we'll come up with plan B with a fan. But I think we'll be okay. I don't think this is going to take that long. This thing's under pressure. Once I open that valve up, it should fill up pretty quick. So let's get going. Okay, so with the car running, filling it up, we got another, let's see, we're probably 5, and then that one was 3 more, so we're a little about 7 right now. Between 7 and 8 liters back in the system. Now, if we had a full drain, I think we'd be at 10, something like that, but we're not going to be at a full drain for sure. But now we are filled. Oh, it's just water. All right, so we are now filled to this step. So the next step is the actual, dialed in levels where we have to get the Foxwell meter on the OBD2 port, read temperatures, and go from there. And that's where I'm gonna have to enlist the help of my wife to get in there and help me with that. So we'll get that done now. Okay, so I'm outside of the garage right now, just trying to let this thing warm up. I'm waiting for the transmission fluid to get to 86 degrees, which is just about at now. And so I'm just stepping outside when I can to get fresh air, because I'm not trying to kill myself with the exhaust in there. But anyway, I think it's about ready to go, and then we're gonna put some more fluid in there. It'll be at 30 degrees C, 86 degrees Fahrenheit. Then we're gonna add some fluid if it's not dribbling out now. If it's dribbling out, we're good. Wait till it gets to 40 degrees C, and we'll make sure that at between 40 and 50 degrees C, it just drips out. So let's check it here in a second. So I don't know if you can hear me very well. I stepped out of the garage a bit. So now we have fluid all filled up. It's past the 30 degrees C mark. It's drizzling out, and now we're just waiting for the car to reach the 40 degrees C temperature, the oil temperature, the transmission oil temperature to reach the 40 degrees C mark. When it hits there, between 40 and 50, it needs to turn into a drip, drip, drip. So right now it's drizzling out. It's basically leveling itself out. And then when it reaches 40, between 40 and 50, it has to start dripping out. When it gets to a nice slow drip, then we're good. We're done. So I'm gonna kind of stay outside of the garage, kind of run back in and check that temperature. It's like 104, so we got about 15 degrees to go, and then we'll hopefully be done with this. We can get this thing on the road. Okay, we got the transmission fluid up to 104 degrees Fahrenheit, and the fluid was dripping out just as a drip. So the manual says that's good. So I put the filler cap back on, and as far as I know, we are done. The transmission is completely finished now. So, whew, that was cool. Kind of a long day. I was really hoping to get this thing on the road, at least for a little test drive up and down the street today. I'm gonna see if I can still pull that off. But I could go without the pipes, I suppose. But the reality is, this thing's up on the lift. It's so easy to deal with. Getting it off the lift and then moving it around and then doing it all back again, you know, probably not going to happen today. I'm going to go ahead and just wait for that guy to go by on his little mini bike. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and put the rest of the exhaust pipes back on, put the muffler back on. Then I have to lower the car back onto its wheels. Go ahead and tighten and torque down all of the structural cross members on the top of the engine, because all those are still loose. You're not allowed to tighten those until you have the car sitting on its own wheels. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'll put the bottom trays back on before I drive it up and down the street or not, but I think I do have a couple more things to do, and I'm not sure I'm gonna get those things done today. So, the next video though, the car will be driven. That's it, it will be driven. I'm gonna drive it out of this garage. Now, if something happens and I have to tow it back, well, then that's the other thing, but let's hope that doesn't happen. Yeah, I'm gonna get this thing buttoned up and get it ready for a safe drive up and down the street to make sure everything is good. I can tell you right now that it was idling for a good 20 minutes. It's probably taking me a good 20-25 minutes to do this. Not a drip coming from anywhere, well, other than the transmission, which was what we were looking for. So everything else looks good and solid. It sounds clean, it sounds smooth. It's very quiet other than the exhaust, but the engine area is quiet. So I think we're in really, really good shape. I'm super excited. Okay, so thank you for watching. If there's any bonus footage of the car driving down the street tonight, I will definitely make sure to include that. But I'm guessing for safety's sake, to make sure I get everything really buttoned up. And to be honest, I do need to bleed these brakes a little bit better. They were not bled very well last time. We still got some air in the lines for sure. So I need to bleed the brakes. If I'm going to go up and down the street, I need to be able to make sure I can stop it and then get it back on the road. But we are very, very close. So thanks again for watching. I appreciate you tuning in to GB9 Garage. If you're liking these videos, please consider subscribing. I greatly appreciate it. Have a wonderful day, and I promise you there'll be a video coming shortly of this thing moving up and down the street. Thanks.